Hello, and welcome to Level Up Your English with that Caffeine Elise. So today, actually, before we get started, just put in the chat where you're from and what your native language is, and if there's any questions that you have, just put them in the chat. So today, normally I would recover the ground that I spoke about earlier this morning at midnight. But today, because that particular live went a little differently than I expected, which is fine, that's the point of these, I thought that I would continue with my theme here, and I didn't get to cover all of the stuff I wanted to cover in the previous video. So make sure you watch the one I did at midnight, because that is more of the I'm not entirely sure what the word is that I'm looking for. What I talked about in the previous video is that English is the reason many people have trouble with English and deciphering English, and the reason they get frustrated with English is that English wasn't created in a vacuum. It wasn't created by itself. There are so many influences from other languages that are involved in the creation of English and where it stands today. That all of those rules from those other languages sort of work their way into English, and it's a complicated thing. It was a complicated development of the language. So that's just a quick generalization of why English is so tough. And so I covered that in the previous live in part 1. So make sure that you go back and I go through examples of how changing one word can make a big difference, how it changes the feeling or the tone or the circumstances of the particular thing you're trying to communicate. So again, go back and watch that and get all filled in and caught up to date on this. What I want to do in this part is I want to read some of the examples. So the point of this live right now is this theme of, introducing you to what I call the wonderful world of words in English. The point of this theme is to introduce those of you who don't have the concept of nuance and I'm trying to think if there's another word for it, but nuance in your language. There are so many languages out there that you have to determine what the word means based on the context of the conversation. And it's because one word can mean many things in your language and languages that follow that pattern. So one word can mean many things depending on the context, what you're talking about, the whole situation. Whereas in English, we have many words to talk about one thing. So we have what we call synonyms, and that's what that means. It means words that mean the same thing, different words that mean the same thing. However, the issue with synonyms is that they don't, the word themselves, the word itself actually is looking at the same thing from a different viewpoint. It has a little bit of a twist. It doesn't mean exactly the same thing. And so therefore, that using a similar word has a slightly different effect, a slightly different meaning. It creates a slightly different feeling. Okay, so that's what I introduced you to in part 1 of this series here. But so what I wanted to do today, which I thought I would get to previously, is to read you different examples of really great writing and creative writing, and then go over it with you and show you why these are such great examples of the concept of nuance and how it opens up the world of words in English to you. And one thing that I came to understand last night as I was talking, literally in the middle of a sentence, I had never thought of it before, but I think my family particularly, but my friends as well, they tease me about my always having to have the right word. I can't just settle for a good enough word. I have to have the right word that really describes what it is I'm trying to say. Even if I'm, having meal with friends and the meal hits me in a particular way, I have to find the right word to describe how much I love that meal or what it is about the dish that really makes it special. And I'm always thinking of the right word. And you'll notice when I'm talking, I don't speak quite as quickly as most people. And you'll often see me look off and look up. It's because I'm trying to think of the specific word. And so it can slow me down, but I'm comfortable that I've communicated my message as clearly as I can. And I think the luxury of having all of these words at my disposal has created that trait in me. Now, how I would speak if I had grown up in another language that didn't have this concept, I don't know. I just don't know. But it's an interesting thing to think about, isn't it? So, and again, the reason this is coming up, I think the reason I'm noticing that this is an important thing to talk about is that as I'm studying Korean is one of those languages that you have to understand the context to know what the word means. So it's difficult for me. It's really difficult for me to do that because I've been so spoiled, I suppose, with having all of these words at my disposal. So it's gonna be a struggle, but I know I'll get through it. So it dawned on me that people coming from the reverse side, coming into all of this wide variety, in many ways, to me, I would imagine it would be like a child walking into a candy store and not having to worry about paying for anything, that it's all just in front of you and you can consume as much as you want. You can save it for special occasions, or you can do whatever you want with this candy store of words. And so anyway, I'm seeing that there's a need to understand this. And actually, though, even there are so many native speakers who we're so busy. Our lives are so filled with things to do and places to go and lists to check off that we get lazy with our words and we rely on words we know are going to work and we'll get the message across at the barest minimum. So, and that just gets the job done and we can move on and check more things off of our list. And so as a result of that, I feel that we suffer, we lose so much of the beauty of language, the beauty of communication, by not understanding how these words work and not fully absorbing the beauty in them. So the first thing I want to read, because again, I do want to keep this within the half hour. If you feel as though that a half hour is not enough time and you want me to make these longer, let me know. Put it in the comments, put it in the chat. Let me know that you want them to go longer. Otherwise, I'll try to keep them within this half hour, because we have so much going on in our lives and I don't want to take up any more of it. I want you to be able to watch these during your lunch break or on your commute home from work or to work, or while you're waiting for to pick someone up at the train station, the doctor's office, whatever it may be. I want you to be able to absorb this information without it taking away from the rest of your life, your family, your work, your schooling, whatever it happens to be. So anyway, I won't take up more time telling you how much time I want to save you. So anyway, so this one is an example of, this is how, okay, so if you're a student or someone in the business world or someone who has to write reports or what can be boring information, to explain it to other people, to, for whatever reason, I want you to see that in English and with English, you can still get the essential information down, but it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be mechanical. Okay, so this one here, oops, you can't see it. It's Modern American Usage, a guide, by Wilson Follett, and it was revised by Eric Wensberg. You'll get to see the cover there. I think this is reversed. It might not be, but anyway. So, and right here, I have a marking here for emphasis. So how you emphasize things within your speaking and your writing. So it goes on, and the part that I have marked off is, so listen to this. This could be a typically boring explanation of emphasis or the example thereof, but listen to this. Tell me how you feel. Think about it. Listen to the words. Think about the emotions that you are that are brought forward for you reading this. And then think about other things you've read that are a similar style, and really think about the difference in how you felt. Would you imagine yourself falling asleep while you're trying to read this? Or do you think this would be sort of compelling and drawing you into the topic? All right, or somewhere in between, anywhere. So think about this. So again, we're talking about emphasis and how to emphasize things within your conversations and in your writing. So, all right. I do recommend this book. This is one of my essentials. So anyway, it says, if a writer or speaker has thought enough about his subject to be aware of its main parts and of their interconnections, his discourse will probably find the right moments and the right expressions for the emphasis he desires. What he has to guard against is inadvertent emphasis in the wrong places, for these can occur in many small ways, easily avoidable if tagged in advance and steadily remembered. And then he goes on, here are a few types of this common fault, blah, blah, blah. So, but that simple thing, it doesn't just say, if you think about it ahead of time, if you really know your material, then you'll know where to put the emphasis. It could have been that simple. But does that draw out this intriguing quality to this topic of emphasis? So the words that are chosen here and create a certain feeling, create more of an adventurous feeling rather than a clinical, oh, this is definitely a textbook. Okay. So I want you to see that there are many ways that you can approach topics that might seem dry and boring because you have so many words now at your disposal. And I like to think of your vocabulary as a bank in which you make deposits. And the wonderful thing about your vocabulary bank is that you can continue to deposit as much as you want. There's no limits. There's, anything like that. But as you withdraw, your balance doesn't go down. Your balance isn't depleted when you take words out and use them. They're always there. Those words are forever in your vocabulary bank. So the more words you add, the more deposits you make into your vocabulary bank, the richer you become, not only as a human being, but in your ability to communicate clearly and concisely and creatively and emotively your messages to the world. So not only do those words stay in your bank and they're always ready for you to take out and use, but the mere use of those words makes you richer. It makes your communications richer. And it also induces you to want to put more words in because it creates such an amazing feeling of excitement when you are using these words to excite other people. It's such a wonderful little cycle. It keeps building and building, kind of like a snowball, rolling downhill. For those of you who have ever seen a snowball rolling downhill, because of the quality of the snow, it sticks together. And this, you could make a little ball of packed up snow, and as it rolls downhill, more and more snow gets collected on it, and it gets bigger and bigger and gains momentum. So this whole world of discovering the words of English creates that momentum of discovery, that momentum of excitement, that momentum of bettering yourself, and thoroughly enjoying seeing the process happen. So again, I could literally, honestly, I could talk about this for days. I love this subject so much. And this is one of the main reasons I love teaching English, is because so many people who for years and years and years have thought either that they couldn't learn it because English is too hard, therefore it must be boring, therefore it's a struggle and just a real drudgery to learn English. I watch people discover the joy and the thrill of the adventure, and it opens you up to your genius, your creative abilities, your joy for life in general. And it even allows you to see your own language in a different light, a better light, because you still have all of that information to draw on. And you can still take all of those concepts from your native language and your native culture. And by having all these words and learning to think in English, you can take that passion for your own culture and country and language and now express it to all these other people in completely new ways that you never knew you had. So there we go. So this is why I love teaching. This is why I love English. This is why I love language and communicating, excuse me, with each other. Because as ordinary as we think we are, We are, in fact, extraordinary people. We've had to deal with whatever it is we've had to deal with in our lives. And look at how we've come through. We might have made mistakes, but we've learned along the way, and we've done the best we could at any given moment. And we have stories to tell. We have lessons that we've learned that we want to share. And so communicating gives us that ability. Communicating in another language gives us even more of an ability and even more of an opportunity. So this book here, Eats, Shoots, and Leaves, is actually one of those books that explains to you, it opens up the world of, this is more punctuation based, but again, punctuation is a way that we put down in writing the, like a comma, a simple comma on the page, because you don't have it in the air. It's a written symbol of a sound of your speech patterns. A simple comma, it means a pause. And so depending on where you put that pause will give the idea of what the person means when they're speaking. But if you use it incorrectly, it changes everything. So again, like words. So this one here, I wanted you to see, again, this could be a really tedious topic to talk about. Grammar, more rules, more regulations, more things I can and cannot do, mostly things I can't do because of all the exceptions, okay? So you can see how it could really put you off and say, oh, forget it, I just can't handle another tedious thing to learn. However, when you read this, you'll understand it doesn't have to be tedious. Now, the chapter title is called The Tractable Apostrophe. So the apostrophe is, it's the IT apostrophe S. So tractable means, for those of you who haven't gone on your dictionary safari yet, where is it? I just had it. Tractable. Easy to deal with or control. So if someone is tractable, they are easy to deal with, or they're easy to control. And some of the synonyms for tractable are amenable, biddable, compliant, docile, manageable, yielding. So this chapter, therefore, is talking about the apostrophe and how pliable it is, how amenable, how you're easily able to work with the apostrophe. So let me just read. Now it's a little bit of a reading here, but yeah, okay, so that's where we end. So, okay. In the spring of 2001, the ITV1 show, which is a station, the ITV1 show Pop Stars manufactured a pop phenomenon for our times, a singing group called Hearsay, and it's Hear, Hear, capital Hear with an apostrophe and then a capital SAY. That's how they branded their group. The announcement of the Hearsay name was quite a national occasion, as I recall. And this is a British English, British show. People actually went out in very large numbers to buy their records. Meanwhile, newspapers, who insist on precision in matters of address, at once learned to place Hearsay's apostrophe correctly and attend to the proper spacing. To refer in print to this group as Hearsay with no apostrophe and just the first capital, one word, would be wrong, you see. To call it Hearsay hyphenated would show embarrassing ignorance of popular culture. And so it came to pass that Hearsay's poor, oddly placed little apostrophe was replicated everywhere, and no one gave a moment's thought to its sufferings. No one saw the pity of its position hanging there in eternal meaningless, silently signaling to those with eyes to see, I'm a legitimate punctuation mark. Get me out of here. Checking the Hearsay website a couple of years later, I discovered that the only good news in this whole sorry saga was that, well, basically, once Kim had left to marry Jack in January of 2002, after rumors, counter-rumors, and official denials, the group thankfully folded within 18 months of its inception. Now, there are no laws against imprisoning apostrophes and making them look daft. Cruelty to punctuation is quite unlegislated. You can get away with pulling the legs off semicolons, shriveling question marks and on the garden path under a powerful magnifying glass. You name it. But the naming of Hearsay in 2001 was nevertheless a significant milestone on the road to punctuation anarchy. As we shall see, the tractable apostrophe has always done its proper jobs in our language with enthusiasm and elegance, but it has never been taken seriously enough. Its talent for adaptability has been cruelly taken for granted. And now, in an age of supreme graphic frivolity, we pay the price. And then it goes on, obviously. So then it goes on. I highly recommend this book. Again, it's how did you feel about learning English grammar and apostrophe that way through a whole story? But it's a real life example. But the way it's by Lynn Truss, Truss, Lynnetruss. So, and you can see the little panda bears cleaning up the apostrophe and the punctuation marks. How would you love to go through a class learning a technical thing like grammar, a boring thing like grammar, a potentially boring thing like this? I would take that class in an instant. So the way you use your words is a critical part of your fluency and how you communicate your message clearly. Okay, so I encourage you, take your dictionary, your dictionary safari every day. That's what I call it. I spend a few minutes, as many days as possible. I just open it up. I look at whatever word my eyes fall on. Institution, so process of instituting, organization founded especially, but whatever. I look at the definition. I look at the synonyms, and then I go look up the synonyms. I follow the definitions of the synonyms, and I just let my curiosity go, and I give myself 5 minutes. And not only are you learning new words, but you're learning new words in depth. So you now know not only a new word, but you know all the ways that you can use that word, and all the ways that you can say, okay, well, no, if I remember that's not really the right way to use it here, there is a better word. Okay, take your dictionary safari every day. It's 5 minutes, 5 minutes. And you can do this on your phone, look up an online dictionary. I personally like Merriam-Webster, but there's the Oxford English Dictionary, Cambridge Dictionary. There's a bunch out there that are reliable, long-standing sources. So anyway, open yourself up to this wonderful world of words in English. If you're not used to having all of these words in front of you, your mind is going to be blown at all the different ways that you can now express your message. And if you are used to it, but you didn't, if you come from a language that has it, but never really thought about it, give yourself a chance. I definitely recommend this book. And I just wanted to finish with one final one before I talk so much. This is from The Country, I don't know if you can see that, The Country of the Pointed Firs by Sarah Orne Jewett. Maybe you can see that better. Is that upside down? Maybe, I can't really tell. But anyway, this was written in 1896, and it's about a place in Maine. This is sitting on the porch there, whatever. And it's such a great description of a community. And this is her house. And so just real as quickly as I can, I just want to read you the introduction, just the first paragraph. Okay, so this is fiction. So if you have a story to tell, like this person had a story to tell about an apostrophe, this is how you can just make them lyrical. And this is an ordinary thing. She's just arriving on the dock of this coastal town to spend the summer at this little house. And it's just beautiful. It's an ordinary, nobody's ever heard of it kind of a place, and yet she makes it phenomenal. So this is the chapter 1 called The Return. There was something about the coast town of Dunnet which made it seem more attractive than other maritime villages of eastern Maine. Perhaps it was the simple fact of acquaintance with that neighborhood which made it so attaching, and gave such interest to the rocky shore and dark woods, and the few houses which seemed to be securely wedged and tree-nailed in among the ledges by the landing. These houses made the most of their seaward views, and there was a gaiety and determined floweriness in their bits of garden ground. The small-paned high windows and the peaks of their steep gables were like knowing eyes that watched the harbor and the far sea-line beyond, or looked northward along the shore and its background of spruces and balsam firs. When no one really knows a village like this and its surroundings, it is like becoming acquainted with a single person. The process of falling in love at first sight is as final as it is swift in such a case, but the growth of true friendship may be a lifelong affair. So that's just introducing you to this little village and then her time that's going to be spent there. So I cannot encourage you enough to get to know your words, learn to fall in love with learning new words and learning how to use new words, and being creative, challenging yourself. How could I use this word? And if you're writing an email or, a report for school, challenge yourself to go beyond the familiar words, the commonly used words, and find a new one. Find your words that you can own in your communications. Make the English language yours and you'll never regret it. Okay? So let me know if you have any comments, drop comments, questions, observations, anything you want, put it in the comments. And we'll see you on Monday. And don't forget to go back and listen to the first part of this, because you'll get a lot of the background information. Okay? Awesome. So we'll see you next week. I hope you have a wonderful one. Bye-bye.